Hey guys, and welcome. Even though I'm having a horrific time saying goodbye to summer as the second temperatures drop below 15 degrees Celsius, seasonal depression just hits me. But there are certain things to be enjoyed about October, and that's Halloween. So, over the last couple of days, I've been compiling a list of movies to potentially watch over the next couple of weeks, and I figured, why not make a movie? Why not make a video about it? So, if you are interested in hearing what my recommendations are, and you don't mind the fact that I skipped over all of the Friday the 13th, Halloween movies, and any of the Scream movies, not because they're not good, but because we've all seen them a million times over, then yeah, keep watching. Number 1. House of a Thousand Corpses. Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses feels like getting lost in a haunted house that actually wants to kill you. It's grimy, loud, and absolutely unhinged in the best way possible. The story's simple enough. A bunch of curious kids go poking around the wrong back roads in search of weird roadside attractions and end up meeting the Firefly family, a group of psychotic murderers who make Leatherface look like a polite dinner guest. The whole movie plays out like a fever dream of bad TV static, neon lights, and hillbilly horror. It's messy, over the top, and doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's sort of the point. What I really love about it is that it's super distinctive. You know you're watching a Rob Zombie movie. It's like a Grammy mixtape of every sick, twisted idea he's ever doodled in his notebook. It's campy, gross, and chaotic as hell. But if you're the kind of person who enjoys watching horror that feels like a metal concert in a slaughterhouse, this movie will be your vibe. Also, Sid Haig was just unforgettable in this movie. The role of Captain Spaulding couldn't have been casted better. Number 2. Donnie Darko. If you're looking for something less gory and more atmospheric and odd, this classic always comes to mind. Donnie Darko is that weird, haunting movie you stumble onto late at night and can't stop thinking about afterward. It's about a troubled teenager who starts seeing a man in a creepy rabbit suit named Frank, who tells him the world's going to end. From there, it's a spiral of time travel, hallucinations, and suburban dread wrapped in 80s nostalgia and teenage angst. It's not really a movie you get the first time you watch it, or maybe ever, but that's part of what makes it great. It's eerie, sad, funny, and oddly comforting in its confusion. And the soundtrack? Pure melancholy perfection. Donnie Darko isn't a horror movie in the traditional sense. It's more like a slow, beautiful mental breakdown filmed through a VHS dream filter. It's about fate, fear, and figuring out if any of this actually means something. The movie will never answer any of those questions for you, so Donnie Darko really is what you make it. Number 3. Hereditary. A modern classic. A great, well-thought-out horror movie with an incredible number of small details which in the end make the biggest difference. Personally, I didn't even realize how much lore I missed until I watched one of those Hereditary Explained videos. It starts off like a quiet family drama and then slowly mutates into something you can't look away from. A psychological car crash that just keeps getting worse. It's about grief, guilt, and the horrifying realization that your family's secrets might literally be hellspawn. Ari Aster drags you into the slow, suffocating dread of watching a family fall apart piece by piece, until what's left doesn't even feel human anymore. Toni Collette gives a performance that feels like she's actually losing her mind in real time. And every scene feels off, in that way your house does after a funeral, when everything looks the same but nothing feels right. In a time where many horror movies are made just to either shock or disgust the audience, Hereditary is a breath of fresh air. At its core, it's a really good movie. Number 4. The Cabin in the Woods. It starts out like every cliche horror movie you've ever seen. A group of college kids heading to a creepy cabin in the middle of nowhere, and then completely flips the table. What looks like another mindless slasher turns into a full-blown meta-horror experiment run by a shadowy organization treating human sacrifice like a corporate job. If you're looking for a fun watch with a little sprinkle of originality, you may want to check this one out. Definitely a good choice for Halloween, as it's shot in a pretty dark, spooky way, which can add to the mood. If that doesn't convince you, let me just say this. I was genuinely surprised by how good this movie was. Number 5, Poltergeist. Poltergeist is one of those movies that sneaks up on you, and then you can't sleep for a week. I may or may not still have some memories of watching it when I was about 8, and I think it changed my brain chemistry. It starts out like any other early 80s family flick. Happy parents, kids running around, that warm suburban glow. And then boom, the TV starts talking, the furniture moves on its own, and before you know it, the little girl is trapped in another dimension. Super relatable. It's not loud or gory at first. It's that slow, creeping kind of weird, where everything familiar starts to feel off. It's really impressive how creepy of a movie they were able to make in 1982, as Poltergeist really holds up to this day. Number 6, Talk to Me. One of my favorite horror movies of the last few years. Plus, I'm pretty sure it's currently available on Netflix. Talk to Me is one of those horror movies that feels way too real for how supernatural it is. It's about a group of teens who discover they can communicate with spirits by holding a creepy, embalmed hand. Kind of like a demonic party trick for the social media era. At first, it's all laughs, thrills, and TikTok-worthy chaos, but it doesn't take long before things get genuinely horrifying. The sessions start to last too long, the spirits get too close, and that line between possession and addiction completely disappears. What makes Talk to Me hit so hard is how modern it feels. Not just in the phones and slang, but in the way it treats grief, loneliness, and the need to feel something. I thought its portrayal of the protagonist being desperate in order to feel her mother's presence was excellent. The director leaves little hints along the way as to what's really happening, so you may want to look out for that. It's brutal and sad in equal measure, and it never gives you the satisfaction of clean answers. The possession scenes feel like drug highs gone wrong, and the aftermath is just emotional carnage. By the end, it's less about ghosts and more about how far people will go to escape themselves. Number 7, Sleepy Hollow. Sleepy Hollow feels like stepping into a nightmare painted by Tim Burton. All fog, candlelight, and dripping black ink. It's based on Washington Irving's classic story, but Burton turns it into a full-on gothic fever dream. Johnny Depp plays a jittery detective who's sent to a quiet village where people keep getting their heads chopped off. And yes, the culprit is exactly who you think it is, the Headless Horseman, played with terrifying flair by Christopher Walken. The movie is dark, funny, and weirdly beautiful. Everything looks soaked in moonlight. Crooked trees, creaky bridges, and graves. Sleepy Hollow is less about pure scares and more about the vibe. It's stylish, eerie, and full of that Tim Burton melancholy, where death somehow looks romantic. It's the perfect movie to watch when you want Halloween atmosphere that feels equal parts cozy and cursed. The movie has a cult following for a reason, and if you haven't seen it, October would be the perfect time to give it a shot. Number 8, Alien. Alien is a perfect blend of sci-fi and pure nightmare fuel. A haunted house movie set in space, where the ghosts have teeth and acid for blood. It starts off quiet, slow, almost boring in that realistic 70s way. Just a bunch of space truckers doing their job. And then, it turns into one of the most claustrophobic, gut-wrenching horror experiences ever made. When the creature finally shows up, it's not just scary, it's absolutely terrifying. A perfect design of something that shouldn't exist, hiding in the vents and waiting for the lights to go out. Ridley Scott nails that creeping dread, the silence, the isolation, the sense that no one's coming to help. The Nostromo feels cold and alive at the same time, like the ship itself is conspiring with the creature. And then there's Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver, who goes from quiet background presence to one of the most iconic horror heroes of all time, without ever losing that sense of raw fear. To this day, Ripley is one of my favorite female characters of all time. Alien isn't loud or overdone. It's patient, mean, and impossibly tense. Plus, the alien itself is one of the coolest creatures ever created. Number 9. The Babadook. Okay, I feel like this movie was huge when it first came out, and for a couple of years following that, and I've hardly heard anyone talk about it since. But, anyways, The Babadook is one of those horror movies that gets under your skin because it feels way too real. It's about a single mom, Amelia, who's barely keeping it together while raising her son after her husband's death. She's tired, grieving, and honestly just trying to survive. But if that wasn't horrific enough already, this creepy children's book called Mr. Babadook shows up out of nowhere. What starts as a weird bedtime story turns into something darker, as she starts hearing noises, seeing things, and realizing the monster might not just be in the book. It might be inside her, too. What makes the movie so good is that it's not just about some shadowy creature in a hat. The real horror is the grief and exhaustion that Amelia's been pretending doesn't exist. The Babadook is basically what happens when your pain refuses to stay buried. It's sad, uncomfortable, and way too relatable if you've ever hit that point where life just feels like too much. Essie Davis completely sells it. She looks and feels like someone who's breaking down in real time. Although the premise may sound cheesy, I can assure you that the movie is not. An excellent choice for Halloween. Number 10. REC. I tend to avoid found footage movies as they're not my favorite subgenre of horror, but REC is different. It starts off pretty harmless. A reporter and her cameraman are following a group of firefighters for a late-night TV segment. They get called to an apartment building for what seems like a routine emergency, and at first, everyone's just curious and confused. But then, the building goes on lockdown. People start getting sick, and things spiral into total chaos before anyone can even process what's happening. What makes REC so effective is how natural it all feels. The shaky camera isn't just for show, it actually puts you in the middle of the panic. You hear people screaming, running, gasping for air, and it feels like you're right there with them. The tension builds slowly at first, then just doesn't stop. And when it finally reveals what's really going on, that it's not just a virus, but something far darker. And that was my list of 10 movies to watch this Halloween season. If you have any recommendations for me, please drop them in the comments down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye.